Hello, hello. So today's episode is getting me so excited. I can't handle it. I recently finished the book Whole Brain Living by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who is a neuroanatomist, an author, and an inspirational public speaker. She suffered a stroke like 8 years ago and lost connection with the left side of her brain and has since regained that connection with that side of her brain. I know. I sounded very sophisticated. But although I love brain science, I'm not one to think technically or kind of like retain technical information very well, which is why, when someone asks me what type of medication I'm on, I never remember the name. Like, I'm much more of a big idea person. And actually, this book, which came out last year, that I'm officially obsessed with, can help explain why my brain's like that. So let's dive in and learn how understanding our brain makeup can also help us understand our binge eating behavior. So again, oversimplifying the very technical, very impressive neuroscience terminology, Dr. Taylor categorizes the brain into 4 quadrants. Now, if you're familiar with my stuff, or if you're one of my current or past clients, you know that I typically would divide our brain into 2 quadrants, upper and lower. And my oversimplification of describing these quadrants is basically that the lower brain is our primal brain, our habit brain. It's less sophisticated, but stores habits and learned behaviors and belief systems. The main goal of the lower brain is to seek pleasure, conserve energy, and avoid pain, which includes things like avoiding death and avoiding being cast out of a group. It just wants to keep us alive and safe in the cave. And it's pretty scared of anything new because it doesn't know if it's safe. It tends to think negatively, kind of that worst case scenario thinking, because it thinks that anticipating what could go wrong is important for survival. Of course, in our primal days, it absolutely was. But today, we don't have to worry as much about all the things that could go wrong for our survival because we're overall pretty physically safe. We're not running from saber-toothed tigers anymore. So the lower brain can be difficult to manage and soothe. However, it absolutely does serve us. If we didn't have it, we couldn't live because it regulates our breathing and blood flow and all that stuff. See how technical I am? Anyway, because of its drive to keep us safe, and it's the part of our brain where we house our deepest rooted belief systems that we learned in childhood, the lower brain also houses our inner critic and our inner rebel. It tells us we're not good enough. It tells us it's too hard. It tells us just to do what we've always done to cope and soothe, and for goodness sake, make sure everyone likes you. It tells us that we have to achieve or look or act in a certain way to be good enough, and our lower brain is often at odds with our upper brain. Our upper brain is often called our highest brain. This is our sophisticated part of our brain that developed later in our evolutionary timeline. It dreams, it strategizes, it thinks about the future. It problem solves, it's connected with others, and houses the part of us that feels purpose and fulfillment. We love when we have our upper brain switched on, and when coaches coach, we try to bring out our highest self to meet with your highest self. Your lower brain is telling you a bunch of lies to keep you safe, like you're not good enough, you're not talented enough, there's something wrong with you, you can't do it. And as your coach, I want to help teach you and give you the tools to recognize when your lower brain is online and being a jerk, so you can separate your higher self from that and connect instead with her. Because that version, the upper brain, is the truest you. That's where your soul or your core self resides. When we binge, we're operating from our lower brain. We can't seem to get our upper brain online, which usually takes more energy. And our lower brain just wants to soothe and calm our bodies in the best way it knows how, which is through binging food. It's a routine that has quote unquote served us in the past. It keeps us alive, and food is a natural desire that signals safety to our brain. Now, when I got certified as a coach, this upper brain, lower brain explanation is what I was taught, and it's absolutely still correct and still helpful. However, in this new book, Whole Brain Living, it adds another layer and is told by someone who's not only a neuroanatomist, but she lost connection with her left brain and was able to personally experience the mental transformation of living only from her right brain. It's absolutely fascinating. I feel so indebted to Dr. Taylor for this gift of wisdom, and I know it will help so many. So let's get into it. This episode is going to kind of be like a Cliff Notes version of the book. So if you want the full details, I highly recommend you read the book and let me know what you think. According to Dr. Taylor, there are 4 quadrants of the brain. She calls them characters, which I found really helpful for my brain to understand. And honestly, the more we get to know these 4 characters, the more they feel like individual qualities that live within us, which is why personally, I'm not like super jazzed about personality tests like Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram. Now, I know. Some of us love them, and I do absolutely think they're helpful in getting to know ourselves and others. But my only worry is when people use their personality label as kind of a life sentence or an overgeneralization. Because as we'll talk about, we're not always 100% a certain way. We each have these 4 characters within us. And while one character might be in the spotlight most of the time, they don't have to be. We can choose which character we shed the light on, which is why this book is so revolutionary and empowering. I think we've all had moments where we feel like we're acting out of alignment, or we feel like there are parts of us that are tender and parts of us that are harsh, parts of us that are playful and parts of us that are serious, parts of us that are trusting and parts of us that are skeptical, because we're made up of all of it. So first, let's divide the brain in half kind of vertically. So you have the left side and the right side, and then we'll kind of splice it horizontally. So you have 4 sections. You have your upper left brain, your lower left brain, your upper right brain, or your lower right, your upper left brain, your lower left brain, your lower right brain, and your upper right brain. So if you can kind of picture your brain being separated into 4 sections, that might help. Each of these sections is a character, and each character carries qualities that make up our personalities, our identities, our beingness, and they're starkly different. Traditionally, we think of the left brain as being analytical, linear, logical, detail-oriented, and we think of our right brain as being creative, flowing, visual, curious, and experimental. Now, that's still true, but it's just not the full story. So if we combine that idea with the upper lower brain information I shared earlier, we kind of get this cool mix of our thinking brain, kind of our upper brain, and our emotional reactive brain, our lower brain. So without further ado, let me introduce the characters. Again, real quick. This is me reading the book and then perceiving what these ideas mean to me and to the world. For instance, Dr. Taylor suggests that we give each of our characters a name, and you should absolutely do that if it helps you. I'm more of a words person. I like to kind of give each character a tag or a title of significance instead of just a person's name or a number, like character 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've given each character a title and an action, which is an oversimplification, but that really helped me comprehend the information. So take that for what you will. Hopefully it works for your brain. So character 1 is our upper left brain. I titled this character Ego, and this part of our brain likes to control. This is the part of our brain that's linear, logical, analytical, focuses on detail, seeks differences, it's precise, it's fixed, it likes structure. This is the part of us that gets shit done. This is the part of us that's organized, motivated, productive, reliable. Dr. Taylor describes a hard character 1 and a soft character 1. Hard character 1s are a little too much in their left brain, so much that they're like rigid, strict, overbearing, and can be unkind and ruthlessly perfectionistic. They're the stickler or our inner bully, the inner mean girl we have in our brains that tells us we should be perfect, that we should always be in control of ourselves and also in control of others. Whereas a soft character 1 ego is basically when we're able to leverage the wonderful qualities of our character 1, so we're able to be organized and efficient, productive, and consistent without being a complete jerk about it. So we can adapt to mishaps and bumps in the road and not be so mean about it. I'm calling character 1 ego because it's solely focused on the self. It cares about how I'm being perceived, how my life is affected, what goals I have, what my preferences are. It's very self-focused. Character 2 is our lower left brain. I titled this character Fear, and this part of the brain likes to doubt. Our fear brain is cautious, inflexible, it's critical, it sees things in black and white, good or bad, all to create the illusion of safety. Visually, I think of character 2 of fear as this scared, untamed animal being kind of like cornered. It freaks out and assumes the worst. It's reactive and just, afraid, and will fight and hurt others in order to protect itself. It's always assuming the worst. I think of the lower quadrants of our brain as the emotional versions of their upper counterparts. So if we were to take the logical, sophisticated part out of left brain, the character 1 ego, we'd be left with its emotions that drive it. And often we control because we are afraid of what will happen if we don't, which is usually the belief that the ego will suffer. And when our whole identity is wrapped up in our ego, in our performance and our abilities, we are so afraid that we must maintain that perception of success so that we can feel good about ourselves. Our fear brain doesn't trust or connect with others. It feels alone and has to fight on behalf of itself because no one else is safe enough to do it for us. Character 3 is our lower right brain. I titled this character Love, and this part of the brain likes to trust. This is the part of our brain that is expansive, friendly, fearless, loving, trusting, and playful. This is the part of us that loves unconditionally. It's the part of us that likes to play, likes to get lost in the beauty around us, likes to create and have fun and laugh. This part of us doesn't care too much if we're productive or efficient. In fact, this part of us is often inefficient and unproductive in the traditional sense of the word. However, it feeds the soul. This is the part of us that delights in various forms of art, that comes online when we finish a race or complete a big project. It trusts others, it trusts itself, it trusts that everything will work out, and it's where we experience gratitude and pleasure. Character 4 is our upper right brain. I titled this character Soul, and this part of the brain likes to connect. Our soul, it's hard to explain, right? But our soul is our truth. It's our authenticity, our inner knowing, as Glennon Doyle calls it. This is like who we are. This is our highest self. It's the part of us that is connected to God or spirit or the divine, or however you experience it. It's the part of us that is connected to our bodies, connected to each other, connected to the earth, to vibrations and intuitions and energies. It's the part of us that is bigger than ourselves. Like I said, it's expansive, it's wise, fluid, and flowing. I picture our character 4, our soul, as this benevolent leader of the other brain characters because it's so wise and compassionate, flexible, and resilient. It's the part of us that can help any of our other characters if they get lost or disconnected. Our character 4 keeps us integrated and balanced. Okay, so again, that was a very simplified, very short explanation of what Dr. Taylor's entire book is about. She explained the characters much more extensively. However, I do wish she would have spent more time discussing a concept she calls the brain huddle. And the brain huddle is where we bring all 4 of our characters together to make decisions and process life circumstances. Because the truth is, we do need all 4 characters. They all serve a function depending on those decisions and life circumstances. Even pesky character 2, our fear, which is that lower left, is an equal part of us, and bringing our character 4, which is our upper right, our soul, out to acknowledge and soothe our character 2 is such a beautiful skill to learn. But I think the empowering aspect of this information is actually in acknowledging that there are 4 characters in our brain. We're not just strictly a control freak. That's just our character 1, our ego, taking main stage. And a brain huddle can happen when we recognize that other characters are better suited for other types of projects. So getting to know each of your characters is really helpful. And Dr. Taylor has a bunch of questions in her book on how to do just that. Instructing us on how to conduct a brain huddle might be hard to do because that process will look different for each person. For me, when I try to conduct a brain huddle since reading the book, it looks like me acknowledging which character is center stage right now and which one is the ideal character for center stage, all while understanding that all 4 of them are required for me to function well in the world. Dr. Taylor presents our four characters as though they're on a hero's journey, meaning working together, they all want to save the day. But we need our character four, our upper right brain, our soul, to bring them all together, to work in harmony instead of resisting and fighting each other to get the job done. Instead of judging and criticizing ourselves when we don't do the thing we said we were going to do. In other words, instead of letting our character two, fear, take center stage after we make a mistake, maybe we need to bring them all together and let our character four, soul, take over so we can see the big picture to help keep us grounded and connected with our worthiness. Maybe brain science doesn't interest you like it does me, which is totally fine, obviously. So you might be wondering, who cares? What does this have to do with binge eating? Well, it helps because so often most people, but especially binge eaters, take their actions and behaviors so personally. They make their actions mean so much about who they are, about their soul, instead of just judging, instead of just understanding that they have these other characters in their brain that are just being utilized in the wrong situations. So many binge eaters are all or nothing thinkers, attributed to their character one ego. So if they don't feel like going to the gym that day, then see, they're lazy, they're weak, they're not driven. They don't care about their health. They have no ambition or drive. If they binge, it means they're totally out of control. They must like food too much. They must be gluttonous people who don't know the value of hard work, self-control, and determination. Or that they have no integrity. They can't keep their promises. They're flaky or unreliable. It's truly just awful how we talk to ourselves. And when they realize their negative self-talk, they ironically beat themselves up even more for not being nicer to themselves. It's so painful. It's exhausting. It doesn't serve them as they work to build a better relationship with themselves and heal their relationship with food. So this whole brain approach is able to better untangle or separate our worthiness and value from our actions. We're able to more clearly see that we're not our thoughts, we're not our feelings, we're not our actions. If we binged, we likely just had our character two, fear, on center stage. And instead of doing a brain huddle and utilizing the traits and skills of each character, we just listened to and trusted our character two, who is notoriously not very trustworthy. And then beat ourselves up after a binge is still giving character two the spotlight. The whole brain approach helps us disassociate our innate value and identity with our brains. So when we feel overwhelming negative emotions, instead of trying to avoid them because they're painful or trying to logic our way out of them with thoughts like, I shouldn't be feeling this. This isn't a big deal. This is fine. Everything is fine. We can more easily recognize that maybe our character one ego is giving something more significance than it should. Or maybe our character two, our fear, just needs to throw a tantrum right now, and the rest of our characters can let it do that in a safe way, acknowledging that this part of its function, this is healthy. And when we stop judging our character two, we can let it throw a fit. And then once it calms, begin the process of truly understanding what was at the heart of the reaction, ultimately growing in our self-awareness and our resiliency. Whole brain living gives us the language to really know about our subconscious thoughts, feelings, and actions. We can notice things like, ooh, I'm getting hyper-focused on details and nothing I do seems good enough right now. I wonder if my character one ego is taking over the rest of the team. How would my characters 3, love, and 4, soul, respond to this situation? What would that look like? How would that feel in my body? That question, by the way, does this feel in my body, is so effective because it immediately puts your character 4, your soul, back online. It can be helpful to conduct a brain huddle regularly. Have you spent much time with your character 3, love, in a while? Are you experiencing enough love and joy? How might you give character 3 more time in the spotlight? When you have a deadline approaching, or if you have a project to accomplish but don't feel like doing it at all, how might you conduct a huddle and bring your character 1 back online to get it done? It's easier to do that when you can recognize what's going on, when you can stop beating yourself up or white knuckling it and making it mean a bunch of negative stuff about who you are as a person. When you have the knowledge of what's going on, that there's different parts of your brain at play, you could say something like, okay, love and soul, characters 3 and 4. You know I'm a big fan while you're online, but right now we need to bring character one, the ego, in so we can organize, prioritize, and accomplish this task that we agree is good for us all. When it's done, we'll bring you back and we can celebrate and delight in the progress. This kind of self-talk might weird you out, and I get that. But honestly, I found this to be super insightful and helpful in my life. I know that I'm my character 4, my soul, but to survive and thrive in this world, I'm also the other 3 characters. And instead of shaming the others, I see how they serve me and I start to appreciate them. It's really helped me with my self-talk. I found I'm much more compassionate and understanding with myself, and I hope it can do the same for you. So let this whole brain way of living sink in for a bit and let me know if it serves you. As a coach, I'm constantly trying to find ways of explaining concepts that resonate with people, and that's different for everyone. But this one was like a light bulb for me, and I hope it was for you too. As always, if this resonated with you, let's chat. I'd love to tell you more about my 12-week End to Secret Binging program, where we do so much self-awareness and self-compassion work. Ultimately, strengthening your relationship with yourself in order to heal your relationship with food. Schedule a free 30-minute call at sammybcoaching.com. That's SAMMYBEE coaching.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at sammybcoaching. And if you can leave a rating and review, gosh, that would just make my day. All right, that's it for now, friends. See you next week.